It began with an Instagram post, and it ended in murder. Landy Goyburo was born on the 26th of February 2001 in Goyburo, Ecuador. Even as a child, Landy was considered exceptionally beautiful, which is saying something in a culture which celebrates aesthetics. As a young woman, she became well known for her participation in beauty pageants, most famous of which was coming fifth in the Miss Ecuador 2022 competition. But Landy was more than just her looks. In the Miss Ecuador competition, she stated she wanted to, quote, touch the hearts of Ecuadorians, end quote. As a young woman, she was well on her way to living up to that dream. She studied social communication at university and was committed to various social causes. She even started a charity in Santo Domingo who worked with local farmers to provide food for underprivileged children and the elderly. Landy raised the profiles of the charities she supported by leveraging her social media following. Every day she shared snaps of her life in the limelight to her nearly 1 million followers, alongside her calls to support philanthropic endeavours. Outside of modelling and social causes, Landy also had an entrepreneurial spirit. She was the CEO of 2 businesses, one which imported household goods and the other which was an activewear brand. The future looked bright for Landy, but all of that came to an end when her life was cut short in a single violent act. Landy's murder was not a case of being in the wrong place at the wrong time. She was targeted, and her killers knew exactly where to find her thanks to a single Instagram post. It was early on the 28th of April 2024 when Landy shared a picture to her Instagram. In it, she was enjoying octopus ceviche at a restaurant in her hometown of Goyburo. Landy and her partner were visiting the town to attend a friend's wedding. They had arrived the day prior and were making the most of a rare moment of quiet time together. In the caption of the post, Landy named the meal and the restaurant. She would never get the chance to realise the impact of this choice. Just 20 minutes after her post went live, she was dead. CCTV cameras captured as 2 armed men entered the restaurant. One stood by the door, while the other approached Landy and her partner as they stood at the counter paying their bill. It appears as though Landy and one of the men exchanged a few words. Then he raised the weapon and shot her several times in her torso and leg. After the shooting, the 2 men fled the area. By the time emergency services arrived to the restaurant, it was already too late. Landy had bled to death on the floor. The footage of the shooting spread across social media and went viral almost immediately. At first, many people believed Landy had simply been the victim of a random violent killing. But in the days after her murder, the police announced that they suspected her death was connected to broader criminal activities. Unbeknownst to the general public, or even to Landy herself, her name had come up in a criminal investigation known as metastasis. This case was founded on allegations of widespread corruption and unethical practices among lawyers and other professionals in Ecuador. At the time of Landy's murder, the investigation had already revealed significant corruption, including money laundering and drug trafficking. Many of the people implicated in the investigation were high-profile individuals in Ecuador. One of the names which came up again and again in the investigation was Leandro Norero. He was a notorious figure with connections to organized crime and illicit activities. He was known as El Patron, and he had built a powerful organization whose primary objective was drug trafficking and money laundering. Leandro had been photographed with the then President of Ecuador, along with another senior minister, which indicated the level of his influence. It's not hard to understand why he considered the metastasis investigation an existential threat. If they discovered how and where he laundered his money, or how his drug trafficking operation worked, he would lose his income and his power. So Leandro called on every favour he had to avoid persecution, and he was prepared to do whatever it took. In 2020, he was prosecuted for drug trafficking in Peru, and he used this opportunity to fake his own death. In this incident, he paid his lawyers to show the judge fake evidence of him having died from COVID-19. The judge accepted the evidence, which gave Leandro the perfect cover to escape back to Ecuador. But death would take its own revenge on Leandro, sooner rather than later. Back in Ecuador, Leandro continued his drug trafficking and money laundering operations. And business was good. During the later parts of 2020, he grew the drug trafficking arm of his business so much that it became the largest drug dealing syndicate in the country. He was supplying drugs, weapons, and laundering cash for the three main gangs operating out of Ecuador, even though they were all each other's competition and enemies. In May 2022, the metastasis investigators ordered a raid on Leandro's home. Inside, they found more than $6.5 million in cash, 6 high-end vehicles, gold bars, countless watches, each of which cost between $200,000 and $600,000 each, 6 laptops, 5 firearms, and countless rounds of ammunition. 11 other properties Leandro owned were also raided, including a car wash, a luxury penthouse, and a cosmetics factory. Leandro was arrested at his home and sent to Cotopaxi prison to await trial. Just 5 months later, a massive riot erupted in the prison. During the time that the authorities were attempting to regain control of the jail, 15 prisoners were killed. One of them was Leandro Norero. Although this aspect of his story is contested, see, Leandro had never been DNA profiled, and so when his alleged body was removed from the prison yard, nobody could ever confirm if it was really him. And of course, we know he had experience with faking his own death. Because of Leandro's background, his phone had been under surveillance for several months in 2021 and 2022 in the lead up to the raids at his home. It was during this time that Landy's name was mentioned in phone calls between Leandro and his associates. It has never been confirmed whether Landy was involved in any of his illegal activities, as the investigators were still looking into her finances at the time of her death. However, they did discover the link between Landy and Leandro. On his phone, they found hundreds of photos of Landy, as well as evidence he had given her expensive gifts like a sports car and an apartment. In other words, Landy and Leandro had been in a relationship, while he was married. Unfortunately for Landy, this choice would ultimately be the precursor to her murder. She hadn't been killed by thugs or gang members who were going after her for some unpaid debt or for narking to the police. It was much more simple than that. She was allegedly targeted by the wife of the man she had been sleeping with. Even though Leandro died in 2022, his wife wasn't prepared to let his betrayal go. It was she who allegedly coordinated the attack on Landy by stalking her Instagram page until the perfect opportunity arose. And it appears Leandro knew how deadly his wife might become if she ever found out about the affair. In texts between Leandro and his lawyer, who was also being monitored by the authorities, he said, quote, "If my wife comes across anything about her, I'm screwed. My friend, her name cannot come out anywhere. Otherwise, my world will come crashing down." End quote. It would be wrong to try and take a lesson from any senseless murder. But if there is anything you can take away from this story, it's this. Don't use real-time location sharing on social media. You never know who is watching or what their intentions are. If you really want people to know where you've eaten or visited, consider waiting until you've left before you post about it. You might notice it's not uncommon for celebrities and well-known personalities to wait 24 hours or even longer to tag the places they have visited. This isn't because they don't have the time, it's because they know the risks associated with real-time location sharing. This caution helps protect their privacy and their safety, and it's a critical consideration given the potential dangers highlighted by incidents like what happened to Landy. No criminal charges have been filed in this case, and the allegations of Leandro's wife's involvement are pure speculation. But the fact remains, a single Instagram post led her killers directly to her. In one of the final images Landy shared to Instagram, she wrote, quote, "The world is an echo. What you send into it, you get out of it." End quote.